Welcome to Higher Rock Education. This video is a summary of the causes of inflation and should be used to supplement our lessons on inflation. Inflation is the increase in the general level of prices and the reduction in the value of money. We're going to discuss three causes of inflation. First is the quantity theory of money. The quantity theory of money is a simple macroeconomic model illustrating the relationship between a quantity of money in circulation, the gross domestic product, and prices. Economists use the formula MV equals PY, where M is the money supply, V is the velocity money is spent, or the turnover of each dollar spent, and P is the general price level, and Y is the total output. MV would equal the total money spent. Think of it as the number of dollars in circulation times the number of times this dollar is spent. PY must equal the total money spent for goods and services because it's the price of goods and services times the total output of goods and services. V, or the velocity of money, doesn't change dramatically over a short period of time, so for simplicity, let's just assume that it remains constant. So what would happen if we use our formula to determine if money supply increased? There'd be three possibilities. Prices could rise, output could increase, or some combination of changes in output and prices to balance the equation. Assume a war breaks out, or there's a new social program that must be paid for. How will the government pay for these needs? A government has three sources of money: tax revenue, debt, or printing money. The government could raise taxes, but that's going to probably slow down economic growth, and obviously it's going to be very unpopular with the voters. The government may be able to borrow money, but the money eventually has to be paid back, and that too can slow the economy by pushing up interest rates. Sometimes the government's unable to borrow money. Imagine you were an investor during the American Revolution. Would you lend money to the United States if you wanted to be paid back? After all, the odds were in the favor of England winning. Even today, investors are hesitant to invest in governments that they're afraid may collapse. A government's alternative may be only to print money. Printing money resulted in periods of hyperinflation in Germany after World War I and in Zimbabwe as recently as 2008. Picture a candy bar costing $1 in 2007, and just 1 year later, that same candy bar might cost over $2 million. That's what happened in Zimbabwe. Another type of inflation is demand-pull inflation. Demand-pull inflation is the most desirable cause for inflation. The economy's growing, incomes are rising, life is good, people want more goods and services. Let's assume that we begin at an aggregate demand and an aggregate supply of AD1 and AS1. The resulting price level is P1 with an output of Q1. Remember, life is good, the economy's growing, incomes are increasing, the total aggregate demand for goods or services increases. We see from the increase in the aggregate demand that there's an increase in both the general price level and the output. Aggregate demand increases to AD2. The new equilibrium is P2, and the output increases to Q2. Demand-pull inflation is considered more desirable because the higher prices are fueled by a growing economy. The final model we will consider is cost-push inflation. Let's return to the original graph of aggregate demand and aggregate supply. This time, we're going to assume there's a reduction in the aggregate supply from AS1 to AS2. The result, an increase in prices from P to P2 and a reduction in output to Q2. This is a terrible combination. The economy is stagnant and prices are increasing. Economists call this stagflation. What causes stagflation? Normally, stagflation occurs when there is a shock to the economy that increases virtually every producer's cost. For example, when energy prices skyrocketed following the Arab oil embargo, the U.S. economy experienced stagflation. These models help us understand the primary causes of inflation: printing money, a growing aggregate demand, or increasing costs that result in a reduction in the aggregate supply. Thank you. To learn more about this lesson and other important economic concepts, please visit our website at higherrockeducation.com. Thank you.